Once Devlin was gone, Darium made me sit on the bed before making his way to the bathing chamber and coming out with a small bowl of water. But I was too troubled to ask, as I sat there still in shock. He walked towards me, going on one knee before taking a hold of my left hand, taking one of the fingers, and putting it into the bowl. That was the first time I noticed that I had been bleeding. I wasn't sure how it happened since I didn't feel the sting of it when it happened. "It is just a little scratch," I said, even though I could now feel the burn on my skin. Darium didn't respond to it as he ran his fingers over my injured one, washing off the blood stain. "It isn't just a scratch, and you were probably out of it to notice that the paper had a bit of thorn in it." "You are right, I was so out of it," I said, gasping out. What about Alvar and the twins? I had wanted to give him a gift I had bought for him. I got up to my feet, remembering the reason for coming back to our chamber. Darium rose to his feet, his arms holding mine, halting my steps when I began making my way out of the room. "Your handmaid can very well handle the young king. For the meantime, why don't you rest? You got quite the scare today." He says this while wrapping a hand around my waist. "You have quite the journey ahead of you tomorrow." I was still not pleased at the thought of going to Hades. One being that I didn't want to be separated from Darium, and the other being that I had no good memory in Hades except Gala, who was gone now. Devlin's plan to leave during the night had been changed because of what had happened a few moments ago. He decided to go the next day, with me and the twins tagging along. I promised to find out who is behind this as fast as I can, Darium says when he sees the passive look on my face. I know he also hated being separated from the twins and me, and as much as I tried not to act affected by this, I couldn't. The image of the dead bird is still lingering in my mind, as is the threatening message attached to it. Darium placed a hand underneath my chin, pulling my face towards him. "Gareth and your handmaid will be tagging along with you. I know they would do anything possible to keep you out of harm's way." I wrapped my arms around his neck, knowing this would be the last time I would see him, at least for weeks. "Do take care as well. Whoever is doing this wishes to cause me harm, which means they might go after you." But his eyes were serious, even pained, as he laced his fingers through the side of my hair, holding my head still to look deeply into my eyes. "They will wish they did, because coming after you was their biggest mistake. One they would most doubt regret." I smiled as I looked up at him. "I am most certain they will. They made a mistake thinking they could mess with us." There was no denying that whoever was behind this charade was going to wish they hadn't done this, because there was no doubt that Darium would ever go easy on them. I just wished I didn't have to leave immediately. Darium nodded. "I hate it as well, Etlardi. I won't be able to see you and the twins whenever I wish to." He sighed, and I saw the anguish in his eyes. "It's going to be okay." I caressed the soft skin of his cheek. "We will no doubt overcome this. We always do." Darium smirked. "You are most right about that." His eyes still remained on mine, and his gaze softened as he took a hold of my hand that was on his cheek, placing a soft kiss on my palm. My breath quickened as I looked into his eyes and noticed the desire grow in them. Then he turned his head, gently biting my thumb, and then kissed it again. His hands traveled along my waist, feeling my curves, and then down to my legs, and he lifted me in his arms. I instinctively wrapped my legs around his waist as my lips descended upon his, needing to fill every bit of my body. Darium kissed me once, pulled back to look into my eyes, and then leaned his forehead against mine. "I'm going to miss you, Etlardi." His sincerity touched my heart, making me wish everything would go back to normal and we didn't have to worry about someone coming after me or the twins. "I will miss you too." His lips slammed into mine as he carried me to our bed and set me down on the edge. Then he undid the thread of my dress, pulling it out of me. Then he proceeded to take off my chemise, leaving me breathless and naked in front of him. He stalked toward me, and I wasted no time, quickly pulling off his shirt and running my hands over the pits and valleys of his muscular chest, sliding his shirt down his arms and letting it fall to the floor. Quicker than I would have thought possible, he unbuttoned his pants, and a moment later, they were lying on the floor in a heap along with his shirt. "Come here," he whispered, but I had other plans. I pushed him back onto the bed and straddled him, looking deeply into his eyes, my heart aching, knowing this would be our last night together before I left in the morning. I kissed his chest and his neck, then down his stomach, and then ran my tongue along his length as he gasped, writhing in pleasure. We stayed up all night in one another's arms, sharing our love till the morning sun broke through the darkness. We were riding fast through the woods after leaving Nisha in the early hours of the morning. I sat in the carriage, holding onto a sleeping Arsenio, while Kiva held onto Hasoslava, who was wide awake and staring at her fingers like it was something fascinating. "Are you sure milady will be okay away from His Majesty?" "I have to bear with it, at least for now," I replied, running my fingers through Arsenio's curly locks. I heard a tap at our carriage door, making me pull up the window slightly to see Devlin riding close to us on his horse. "Feeling all right?" he asked after slowing down a bit. "Yes, I am fine. I'm still not sure about the thought of returning to Hades," I said, slightly exhilarated. "It's understandable." Devlin stated this with a sad smile. "You had no happy memories there and always had to be wary in our presence. And for that, I'm sorry." "You have apologized quite enough already," I said. "Besides, I did have good memories there. They might not be much, but they happen to be one of my most cherished moments. I leave that all to Gala. I can't help but be sad knowing she is not with us anymore." "I'm certain it will all be all right," Devlin replies. "Rest up, we still have a few more hours before we get to Hades." Soon, the carriage pulled to a stop in front of the Hades Palace. It was still the same as I last remembered it to be. The interior outside was as beautiful and dignified as it once was. But it was nothing like Nisha. The thought of Nisha had me thinking about the palace, and I shook the thoughts from my head, knowing doing so would only make me sad. I got down from the carriage with the help of Devlin, while Gareth helped Kiva down. At the entrance of the palace stood Minerva with a visible baby bump, standing there with a huge smile on her face, along with some guards. We all made our way to the entrance of the palace, and as soon as I got to where she stood, she pulled me into her arm, giving me a warm hug while being cautious of Arsenio in my hold. "It's so good to see you again, Letitia," she said when she pulled back. "Irrespective of the reason, I'm thrilled that you are here." I smiled. "I won't say I'm thrilled to be here, but I'm most certainly happy to see you again. Don't worry, I plan on washing away every past memory with a happy one." She states this with a face full of sincerity, and I couldn't help but feel warm at her words. "You must be tired. Why don't I show you the way to your chamber so you can rest?" "I will very much like that," I responded, and exhaustion began to hit me. I turned to look at Devlin, who was standing protectively next to his wife, and I smiled at their loving sight. "Rest for now, and why don't we have dinner later in the evening?" I nodded at this and began making my way into the palace, with Minerva following beside me. We both walked the familiar hallway that led to my chamber here in Hades, and I took a breath when we stopped at the door. "Why don't I take care of the twins in your stead while you rest up?" Minerva offers. "No, you don't have to. I don't wish to impose on you." "You aren't." She refutes my claim, shaking her head. "They are my niece and nephew. I will be more than glad to watch over them for a few hours." "Thank you," I said, handing over Arsenio to her, who was already awake. "It is no hassle." Minerva grins, giving me a nod, with Kiva trailing behind her with Hasoslava. I returned my gaze to the door, my hand hovering over the knob for a while before pulling it open, not sure what I expected. But my chamber had been exactly as I left it, with nothing amiss. Nothing was added or removed. I took in the familiarity of the room. It had been my safe haven during my time here. Taking a walk into the room, I slowly made my way to my bed, lying on it. It wasn't long after that before I found myself falling asleep. When I finally woke up, the sun was setting, showing it was already nighttime. Minerva was still with the twins, while Kiva was here with me in my chamber. After getting freshened up, I stepped out of my bathing chamber while attempting to block off the memory of what had transpired a few days earlier. I immediately raised my head to look at Kiva as she gasped and looked at me. With her palm on her chest, she acted a little too dramatically. "Milady!" I'm worried you'll start to wrinkle because of all those lines on your face. Her words made me laugh lightly at the time, which instantly made me feel better. Why not concentrate on yourself instead? I joked. I can clearly see the crease between your foreheads. Kiva continued to gasp while covering her forehead with her hands. I just turned 17 a few months ago, so I can't believe Milady labeled me elderly. I corrected her, my bad, and meant it. I first took the outfit she had prepared for me before that. You most definitely don't act your age. For a split second, I thought you were in your 70s. I think I deserve that for making fun of you, he said. When I noticed her slight pout, my laughter got louder. She struggled to maintain a dejected expression, but she couldn't control the upward pull of her lips. In a split second, laughter was followed by a sincere outburst. I know Kiva had only done this to lighten the mood, and it worked. I felt myself relax a bit, and I couldn't help but be glad that she was here. Like Minerva had said, my past experience here in Hades should remain so. And now I have the opportunity to make new happy memories here. After being completely dressed, a knock at the door had our attention shifting towards it, and Kiva walked to it, pulling it open. An elderly woman in a maid's outfit stood at the entrance, bowing her head when she caught sight of me. Good evening, Queen Sviatoslavic. His Majesty and his Queen have requested that you join them for dinner. The woman said this with a warm smile plastered across her face. I smiled at her. Sure, lead the way. I said I was making my way out of my chamber, and the maids walked in front of me, directing me towards the familiar hallway that led to the dining room. Once we got to the door, she bowed, excusing herself as she went the other way. Taking a deep sigh, I gave the guard at the door a nod, causing them to pull it open. I made my way into the dining room, spotting Devlin and Minerva, who both seemed to be having what looked like a serious conversation. Minerva had a worried look on her face, while Devlin had a crease between his foreheads. Both duos turned to look at me, their conversation ceasing and a smile plastered across their faces. Letitia. Minerva was the first to speak as I made my way towards them, curious as to what discussion they were having that seemed to have ended abruptly at the sight of me. I gave both Minerva and Devlin a smile, taking my seat next to Devlin and opposite from Minerva. I believe your sleep was comfortable. Minerva asks. I know it's been a while since you've been here, and it might feel strange being back with everything that has happened. It was nice. The smile on my face remained, though it was anything but genuine. I'm surprised my old room is still intact. I had half expected Katrona to turn it into another closet for her millions of dresses. Devlin lets out a short laugh. I won't say she didn't try. I was only able to stop her after threatening to have her favorite and more expensive dresses burned. I let out a scoff at this, not at all surprised. I didn't have anything changed, and I left them the way they were before you left for Nisha. I noticed. I muttered, unsure of what else to say. My gaze shifted to Minerva, who was already staring at me, a warm smile on her face. I hope the twins were not a bother to you. Not at all. She laughs. I had expected them to be fussy or cry, but they were truly well behaved, but they slept for most of the night. Both had woken up twice, an hour after they fell asleep and then just before the morning sun rises. Both for needing their nappy changed. She explained. And you don't have to worry about them not being here, my handmaid is helping get them ready. I gave her a nod, glad to know the twins were in great hands. This is a lovely room. My eyes wandered around the dining room, taking in the changes that surrounded it, making it look more lively and bright. Minerva nodded, gazing out at the large vase of flowers arranged around the room as if just realizing it was there. I'm glad you were able to come. Now that it's autumn, the beauty of this place seems radiant than ever, especially with the help of the flowers. It really does look nice. I smiled warmly at her, getting one in return. Devlin gave a nod at the maids present, and they began going about their duties, filling the table with varieties of food, before bowing and making their way back to their positions, with each maid standing behind us. The three of us began eating, having small, subtle conversations in between, with Minerva letting me in on everything that had happened the past few months since her return to Hades. Would you like anything else, Queen Sviatoslavic? I turned my head to face the owner of the soft voice, a young maid dressed in a simple blue dress with her curly hair packed in a bun. No, thank you, I replied, giving her a soft smile. I took my napkin from my lap, patted the corners of my mouth in a manner that I reflected a proper lady, and placed it beside my plate. She nodded and did a small curtsy before walking back to her position against the wall, her heels clicking underneath her dress as she did so. My eyes swept back to the large plate that had been placed in front of me about an hour prior. At the beginning of our breakfast, it had been filled to the brim with all kinds of meat, white bread, elk being a few I could identify, and 2 bowls of green vegetables to accompany it. I had eaten about a quarter of it all, and still every plate looked barely touched. I didn't really have the appetite, despite how appetizing the foods looked. I had tried to eat as much as I could, having to force myself to have more bites. Now the consequences of eating more than I felt like were finally catching up to me, and my stomach churned just at the thought of stuffing any more inside it. My lungs were physically hurting because there was so much food inside me. I met Devlin's eyes from beside me and found him smiling while glancing at my hardly touched plate of meat, his eyes full of unspoken thoughts. My hope was that he wasn't guessing I disliked it. The food itself was scrumptious, everything having been cooked perfectly, and the meat almost seemed to melt in my mouth. But it was just way too much, especially since I didn't have much appetite to stomach them all. He asked, "Is the food not up to your standard? Looking down at my barely eaten food, we can have the maid prepare something for you." "That won't be necessary." I wave off his offer. As much as I hate being wasteful, I had a hefty dinner last night. "Don't hesitate to let us know if you need anything. This is as much your home as it is ours." In the past, I never would have found myself seated here in this very dining room without being summoned by my Leandros or Afra, only because my presence was needed. The fact that I was welcomed here and would be treated with much respect and love. Never would I have thought things would be different here and that I would be surrounded by friends and families, all of whom truly cared for me apart from Darium. At the thought of him, I feel every worry and anxiety being pushed out the door. His beautiful blue and amber orbs are like a blanket of hope, warming me up on the coldest of nights. His soothing touch on my skin causes fireworks all over my body, an absolute sensation. It was funny how my leaving here had been full of terror as I thought of what awaited me in Nisha and how everyone had hoped to hear the news of my passing. Yet someone who was known to be ruthless and merciless on the outside was nothing but soft, gentle, and calm when it came to me. He had been the one who saved my life, made me who I am, and treated me like I was gold and nothing less. My thoughts were put on hold when the door of the dining room pulled open. Kiva and Minerva's handmaid both walked in, each holding onto a child. Kiva walks towards me, handing Arsenio to me, while Minerva's maid moves over to where Devlin is, giving him Hasoslava. He cooed at the baby in his hold, causing her to giggle, and a smile stretched across his face in adoration. "Thank you for getting them ready." I say this to Minerva, the handmaid. She gives a small nod, bowing before making her way out of the room with Kiva behind her. I stared at Arsenio, fixing his little royal robe. His tiny hand came up to rub his eyes, making me smile at him. "Frat, not little one, Mama is here," I whispered, leaning a little to peck his forehead. "He is very active for a 7-month-old child. Soon he shall start standing, and we predict that before his first birthday he shall walk," Minerva says, and I smiled, looking over at Devlin and Hasoslava to find the latter trying to grab the royal heirloom that was wrapped around his neck. Her attention focused on it, with what seemed to be curiosity and fascination. Devlin handed over Hasoslava to Minerva, who seemed impatient to hold on to her, and I smiled at this. My attention drifted back to Arsenio, watching as his eyes began to drift close as he slowly fell asleep. My fingers move across his curly lock in a calming manner while humming a soft tone. I wasn't sure for how long I carried on with it. It was only when I felt Devlin's hand on my shoulder, trying to gain my attention, did I look up at him with a smile, his eyes full of adoration and love, yet worry. "Is everything okay?" I whispered. Minerva seemed focused on the child in her hold. Devlin let out a long sigh, leaning closer to me. "We need to talk," he said while rubbing my palms with his thumb. "It's a matter of importance. There is something you need to know." A puzzled look adorns my face, one that I was most certain he could read. "I have matters to attend to today, so it might not be possible." "But what about tomorrow?" "I wish to take you somewhere. This also gives us time to bond." I don't think we've had the chance to. Okay, I said calmly, with a reassuring smile on my face. He placed a kiss on my right cheek before getting to his feet, kissing his wife on her lips, and then proceeding to make his way out of the dining room. After bidding Devlin goodbye, Minerva walked me towards the castle gardens, with the twins still in our hold. It was one of my favorite places to spend my time as a child. I vividly remember picking flowers with Gala, both of us lost in our little world. I gazed at the view, which I sorely missed, as we both sat down. The garden was filled with beds of all sorts of flowers, mostly purple, red, and yellow. Ripe grass surrounded a massive water feature that was in the center. A fish pond with lily pads tossed in at random surrounds the garden's periphery. It felt somewhat peaceful.